Good evening and welcome to this public online talk from the Contemporary Art Society for Wales. I'm Roland Davis, Chair of CASW, and I have the pleasure of introducing this evening's speaker, Christine Roychowdhury. Good evening, Christine.
Good evening.
Now,
Hi.
Christine's talk is entitled What I Paint and Why I Paint It. And as we're going to see, Christine works mainly in oils on canvas with some mixed media. She produces predominantly large-scale paintings looking at viewpoints, and figures feature frequently within her work. Some of you may be familiar with Christine's work through her collaboration with 56 Group Wales, or you may recall her appearance on Portrait Artist of the Year in 2019. Christine has agreed to take questions at the end of this talk for those who are joining us on Zoom. We would like you to put your name and question into the chat box, and when we get to the point for questions, I will explain how this is going to work. So, Christine, it's over to you.
Hi. I titled the talk What I Paint and Why I Paint It. The reason for this is because there's always a why in my paintings. I went to Goldsmiths College in the 1980s, and basically Goldsmiths College is a conceptual college. You had to have an idea at the back of your work. And I've always thought that this has to be central to any artwork. You have to have an idea. You have to have a reason for actually doing it. It has to be more than just a pretty picture. It has to have an emotional impact. And it also has to work as a picture and a composition. But it also has to have a reason at the back of it. When I was asked at the Scottish Portrait Award to give a video, they asked me why I painted portraits, and I said, well, basically, I don't paint portraits. I paint figures, I paint people, I paint ideas. And so all my painting is about ideas. I'm going to share some of my work with you. Hang on, I've got to put my glasses on. Share content. Photos. And the first one I'm going to share is a painting that I did when I was starting out painting. So I've just got to put these in order so that they come through and I can share the content as we go. Sorry, I've got rather a lot of pictures because I've rather a lot of ideas in reality. Okay, so they will come up in a moment. You can see the paintings at the back of me, which will be one of the paintings I'll be talking about soon. The first painting is a painting of my parents. My parents have been very influential in my artwork, and basically they're a working class family, and a lot of my art comes from that point of view, from being working class. This painting was inspired by the American Gothic and the idea of two partners standing in front of their home. And at this point, I was going through, I suppose, a very detailed phase, sort of pointillistic phase. So you can see that my son as well was very detailed portrait. And I was trying to get, oh yes, I almost forgot. I didn't have any girls. So I dressed my son up as a little girl. And I did actually decide that I wouldn't dress him up as a little girl for painting again. when he started to ask where his dress was. And I decided at that point I might be doing psychological damage to him, so perhaps it was not a good idea, although it actually ties in quite nicely to my later themes in reality. But you can see the bees in the left-hand corner and the sting of innocence and youth. Again, I was doing not simple portraits, and you've got the flowers and the teddy bear. So it was innocence, I suppose, is that theme of that one. All gone the wrong way. No, I haven't. I've got two of that one. This one was one I put in for the Scottish Portrait Award. And it was at the point of time where I was getting a divorce, and I was moving to Scotland, and it's called Choices. And the idea was you stand at the crossroads or the stile, and you choose which direction you're going. And depending if you are Greek or Roman, you are either looking into the future, or you have you're looking into the past, and your past is at the back of you, or your future is at the back of you and unknown. So it works either way. You've got the thorn bush at the back, which relates to the idea of being Lancastrian and your choices from that. The dog is a representative of something that doesn't have time. It lives entirely in the present. So the dog was sort of the added meaning into this. As I say, this was hung in the Scottish Portrait Award when I was still doing very detailed sort of work. I was trying to get I suppose the dark, dull skies of Lancashire within this, and the blues and the greens, trying to sort of emphasize just sort of being tonally quite neutral with it. You can see that there aren't many colors actually in there, which in actual fact contrasts quite strongly with my later work. I was still doing this whilst I was preparing for the Sky Portrait of the Artist trial that you went through. It was quite a trial. And this was my 4-hour trial. You can see that the earlier paintings were quite detailed and took an awful long time. And in actual fact, I probably should have prepared, as I generally don't do, a little bit more carefully for the Portrait Award. This was the 4-hour practice portrait to see whether I could actually paint a portrait in 4 hours on my way down to London, because as I said, I moved up to Scotland following my divorce, and this was the one on my way down back through Lancashire, 4 hours to try and see whether I could do it. And this was me doing the 4-hour portrait, which I did rather disastrously, I have to say, but it was a good experience, and it taught me quite a lot in reality. And I insisted at the time on doing a full-length portrait, because everyone around was doing head portraits, and they kept asking me, why do you not do just the head? Why are you doing the whole portrait, the whole figure? And I said basically that the whole figure tells you a lot more than just a head shot. It tells you about the frailty of the figure. It tells you the fact she's holding the walking stick. It tells you an awful lot more. But it does, in 4 hours, it is quite restrictive what you can actually get done. So that was my 4-hour portrait. And I then returned back, and I started looking at what I was going to do for the idea of exploring aging, because I was fascinated by aging. I was fascinated at the fact that my mother could stand, and still can, stand at a bar and be totally ignored. Pass by, keep serving people behind her, at the side of her, and you can watch this occur. And it's something about, you disappear at a certain age. Women especially disappear. And part of that is I was fascinated by that, and I started to explore that. And I started, in actual fact, a series of portraits or paintings, basically. I started a series of paintings about the relationship between my mother and myself, and also what it was like to get older. And I like to look at viewpoints. I mean, you can see that this is a sort of a viewpoint. I do work from life, and I take lots and lots of photographs and images. And so my mother was woken up sort of early one morning, and basically lots of photographs taken. And I was looking at the idea of how you become isolated. Now, my mother is deaf, or becoming deaf. She was hearing aid. She can't really hear if there's other people around. So she's become socially isolated. You can see the wedding dress on the side. Her world has shrunk. And you can see that actually, as an older woman, you may notice significantly that that's the detail of the face. I was trying to get the feeling of the face and the isolation. My mother has one eye, in case you're wondering about the eye, but she has one eye. She's slightly deaf. And I was trying to get the feeling of the emotional impact of the piece as well. The sort of wedding dress that's sort of her partner, my father, has died. So you've got the bed in the background, which is chintzy cheerful. Obviously, not really those colours, but chintzy cheerful. And he is no longer there. So you've got the spare bed in the background. So it's talking about isolation. And as I say, I'm trying to get both a visual impact. So I'm looking at viewpoints, angles. I've changed things around a bit. And I'm also looking at the use of colour to get that emotional sort of pull through. And it's got an idea at the back. I like dancing, and I wanted to do I've always looked at dance. This was one that was in the Wales group at that time, doing that. And it's more positive relationship painting of my mother. I wanted to be more positive. And we are dancing. And I like to introduce the idea of time. And you've got the time, which is the leaves, autumnal leaves at the bottom, which is, oddly enough, a recurring theme. And you have this saying, which is, you can't step in the same river twice. And it's about time passing and changing, and how you almost become your mother. She merges into you, you merge into her. You've got this, she's always been a level of support. And again, it's about aging and about the fact you are the same person, and the aging of the person through, and the same person in reality. You can see the merging within the middle, and you've got the river at the back, which, as I said, it is about how time is going to be there for everyone. Everyone's going to get older. Everyone's going to change. And it's about the support my mother gave me as well. It's about the idea that she always supports me in everything. She says, go for your dream, lead it. Keep your feet on the floor. So it's about your feet on the floor and mine not quite being on the floor. And there's always a double-edged thing with parents. They want you to be sensible. They want you to be realistic. And yet they want you to go, they'll support you for going in for your dreams. So you can see that's trying to actually get that feel of that across, is the idea of my going for my dreams, my idea, my feet aren't on the floor, her feet are on the floor, she's supporting me, she's the man, she's leading me. And that's that one. As I said, dance has been something that I've looked at quite frequently throughout my painting. And this is one where I'm about 20, I think, and I'm dancing with my brother. And the idea of merging and emerging has been a sort of constant theme with me. I love the idea of trying to capture movement and the shift that you get, so that your painting does not stand still. And this can be through the merging of the images or the shifting of your viewpoint. Like David Hockney says, you do not see statically from one viewpoint. What you do when you actually look at things and when things are occurring is your viewpoint constantly changes. It moves up, it moves down, you see the floor. And you can see this in numerous sort of paintings. Leonardo da Vinci, in his Last Supper, he's looking, when you look at the painting of the Last Supper, he looks down at the feet, he looks across at the table and up on the table and then up through, and you even see the ceiling. So it has this sort of movement. And I'm looking to actually try and create this constant sort of movement. You can see this is sort of a practice looking at how I was going to put it together, because I take photographs and I experiment and I play with it. But I'm trying really, as I say, to capture that feeling of shift and time and movement. You can see, as I say, in the legs and in the movement round, and trying to get the composition to work. The viewpoint is not constant. Initially, you will think that the viewpoint is the same. Initially, when you look at the picture, you kind of think, oh, it's a natural view. But actually, you're looking down on things, across at things, and up at things at the same time. So it's a playing of shifting. This is, again, another painting where I was looking at viewpoints. You can see we're looking down at the slippers. You're looking across at the bed. You're looking up at the ceiling and the lights. This was a painting from my mother-in-law's, and it was something that things suddenly strike me when someone says something, and I think, oh, that would make a good painting, because each time we would go and visit, she would talk about going outside. She would say, I'd love to go and see the snowdrops. I'd love to go and see the bluebells outside. I want to go outside. But she was bedridden. She could not move very far. And this is all, again, and she couldn't move also mentally. She suffered from depression the whole of her life. And so she found things very hard to do, very hard to create momentum and movement. And that's what this one is about. You can see through the windows at the back. Oddly enough, things happen sometimes oddly, and she died. In actual fact, she died this last year. She managed to get out of bed, and she managed to get outside, where she actually fell over and she died. And it felt really sad and prophetic once I was doing this painting, because I was in the middle of doing it, and completed it after she died. But the idea of it was given to me by her, and it was already started and drawn out and planned for and done before it. This area here was something where you can see I constantly involve clocks and time, and there is a reference to the fact that she always liked oranges, and her sister used to always take her oranges, and she accused people of stealing her oranges. They've stole my oranges. And so it was a sort of nod towards that. Certain statements, certain occurrences suddenly give me an idea, and it happens within it. This one is reflection, and it's about, once again, about the idea that we are the same when we're 20. We're the same no matter what, at 18, 20, 80. And it's the idea of, I use myself as the back figure, and my mother as the one in the foreground. And my mother, I had a conversation with my mother, and she said that she feels just the same as when she was 20, only her body doesn't work the same. And this was basically about that, and about shifting. So I've tried to capture the feeling of my mother within that, and sort of the softness of her, and the contemplative sort of feel of the image. I've used different materials to actually gather that through. There's sort of a slight gold in that sort of through. Now, what happened was, I did go to Bonnard, a Bonnard exhibition. I went to a Bonnard exhibition, and this is my reaction to the Bonnard exhibition, in that I didn't like the way that Bonnard's wife, Martha Poussin, she was actually not depicted as a person. I really loved Bonnard's images. I loved the way he did use composition. He crops the edges. He does amazing compositional sort of shifts. I loved his work. I loved his light, but I hated his subject matter. I hated the fact that Martha did not come over as an actual person, but was just like a vase of flowers. And he was the artist. He was the artist in there, and she basically was the model, etc. So I decided to do my own sort of Bonnard image, where I've used my partner, you can see in the background. Luckily, he didn't object. But I played around with images, and where I am the active participant in this, and the model is is not active, the male model. So I thank Bonnard for his inspiration. This one was again a Bonnard idea in a way, in that it inspired from nudes. I did this of my partner, and it was in the Scottish Portrait Awards, which I was very surprised at. I was very surprised. It was in the long list. And I was very surprised. I hadn't noticed it, which is really weird, but I hadn't noticed it got in the long list. And I was a teacher at the time, and one of my pupils came up to me and he said, my father showed me an image of yours in the Scottish portraits. And I had a few in there, and I thought, well, which one? And he said, the one with the man in the slippers, which I have to admit was very, very diplomatic of him. It kind of, it allowed it to go through. It's because he was talking in front of and I thought, gosh, that's amazing. I mean, this one again, I was looking at the reflective quality of materials. It's called Anda. And and he comes from quite a wealthy background, which is why the gold in the background. And he's standing at the door. He's in the doorway. Because as with all relationships, you're never sure how long someone's going to stay. So he's at the doorway. Is he going to stay? Is he going to go? Because this is a relationship following sort of my divorce, and you're never absolutely certain of people. And this is about the uncertainty. But I did like the comment about the slippers, I have to say. As I said, I was a teacher at the time in Scotland. This one is called The Art of Teaching. And it's about monkey see, monkey do, basically. It's called The Art of Teaching, and you can see the reference to the historical sort of artists. And when you're telling a person how to do something, you say, or draw something, it does it like this. You kind of you move this hand, you do that. But sometimes it has the thing that actually what you are doing is you're manipulating pupils. You're manipulating pupils in a good way. I suppose you're actually, the wall, if you think about it, another brick in the wall, but you are manipulating them to achieve academically, to know what they're doing. And that it's a dual-edged sword. Is a sort of all education is a dual-edged sword, because you're creating a someone that fits in with society, or they wish you to create someone that fits in with society. You are told that you are teaching art so that they can get a job. You're not teaching art for the love of it. You're teaching it so that the pupil can fit in with society, and they can sort of get employment. And you're teaching it for employment, not simply because that you love the subject. But you do tend to, in art, you tend to teach, again, you can imagine you teach for ideas and get them to think about this, question everything. So that is about that. As I say, I was in Scotland, and we're talking about relationships and the idea of uncertainty and certainty within relationships. And you can see, once again, I've got the idea of dance, the dance of life, of time, because you always have music that you are going to be dancing to. You have music which takes time for you to be in there, and you're dancing to this music, and your music might be different to someone else's music. Your dance might be different to someone else's dance. You might not be in step all the time. And this painting was living the dream. And it's about whether your dream is the same dream as someone else's dream, whether your idea of what you want is actually what you want. So, and whether the relationship is you have to work hard at relationships in order for it to work. So you've got sort of the contrast between the two images of not quite in sync in thought, where you're working hard to keep step with this person. You're working hard to actually keep the relationship going. And it changes. And it might be actually that your dream, is the person painting the picture, that actually the artist is really living the dream, not the person doing the dance and got the nice handsome man in the kilt, sort of living the dream. So it might be an ideal of a dream. So it's a double-edged sword. Now, this one is about the idea that some ideas come slowly and some ideas come fast. This is called Rivers of Blood. And this one has taken a year to actually develop. And because I was looking at, I was actually between two places as well, but it's about the relationship between mothers and sons, and the way in which sons grow up and fledge the nest, off go. And you have the dance once again, the dance of life, because dance has frequently been used as a metaphor for the dance of life, and the idea of movement through time and movement through your life from childhood through to adulthood. And what I've tried to do is encapsulate the idea of movement through time in this. I mean, I've looked at different seasons, got the change in the different seasons, and it's talking about, well, it's actually specifically, it's talking about my relationship with my son. But in reality, I try in my paintings to paint the particular and actually talk about sort of the general, the universal. So the idea that as you grow up, you support them and you try and build them up. You let them, spread their wings, and then off they go into an uncertain future. There are dangers, there are snow, there are storms, and but one thing that ties you, and it ties you to the past and to the future, are these rivers of blood. You are tied to your mother, your grandparents, and you're tied to your son. He's tied to you, and the future generations going forward. These rivers of blood continue to flow, a bit like a normal river, but it's made from relationships and your family. You can see that, as I say, it took me a year to actually paint it. I was looking at the blossom trees. I was looking at the local trees as well, and the winter time, and trying to use different techniques. You can see time again in that. I've tried to make sure the watches are within there. I try and use color to make the painting jump, to make it not a static thing. So you've got as I say, the leaves are reoccurring within there. So you've got the time and the melting of time. as I said, some things ideas come very slowly. One of the ideas with that, which is sort of they mature and they grow. This is a visit to the local church around here, St. Edmund's, and I saw this figure there. It's my brother and Andrew in the background. I saw this figure and I took a look, and I suddenly came up with an idea. You can see the dog at the side, the loyalty, the dog and the lion at the side. And you can see the idea starts to come. There's my lion and my knight in shining armor. This is the start of an idea for a painting. It won't stay like this. He's very good. He's very amenable to actually being my model, climbing on the table and becoming my model and my lighting effects, etc. And you can see that I took about 100 photographs at once. So that's an idea that comes slowly. Some ideas come very fast. I say fast. I probably took 100 photographs of people I realized on the tube, thinking this would make quite an interesting painting. And these ladies were around. I did ask them, make sure I got the permissions to actually paint them afterwards. And I just liked the idea of the journey, the idea of the silence, the idea that actually you are in a busy place and you cut yourself off. You've got your internal journeys going on. I've tried to reflect the silence and also the feeling of staticness and movement at the same time. But I rather liked, I've changed the colors and I changed the composition and the viewpoints, and I play around with viewpoint all the time. So it's not as seen, but trying to create the atmosphere of silence. I also I've tried to do some ideas from my working class background, because of the people that are invisible, the invisible people, the working class people that they get ignored. They don't see cleaners. People don't talk to cleaners. Quite often as a teacher, they are looked down upon in a weird sort of way. And I wanted to paint these ladies, Iona and Donna. I wanted to paint them because I used to meet them on the stairs every time. You never saw one without the other. They were always together. And it was just the idea of the friendship and the closeness of two people together. And that's what I was trying to get with this, and the idea of blending in and through. But this is one from a political one. It's out of order, but it's about again, it's about the role as a teacher. It's called "What Are We Teaching?" And you may notice in the background, I'll just draw attention to the fact there is a building. So you're teaching architecture, the building of things, and building up of architecture. And you've also got the fact that when Putin invaded, we stood by. And it's a political statement, basically, on what are we teaching? Are we teaching people about money and money's important. Jobs are important. Oil is important. Gold's important. But where do we stop? And it's about myself as the fool and the gatekeeper, the key keeper, and ideas that you pass or don't pass. This is another painting which is political, which allows a comment on, it's called Sisters, and it's, do we dance on whilst the world burns? What do we do? And it's a question, again, you can see I've used the theme of dance and the theme of movement and the river and time, and trying to get emotive is probably a little too political at the point in time, but it is again about what's happening. Where are sisters? Where are women standing on this? We've got women fleeing from the Gaza. Where they're going? What are we doing? And it is a comment in the form of a question. What are we doing? What should we do? This is a painting that I am doing at the moment. It is, again, it's a painting about someone that doesn't normally get painted. I was looking at different themes. I've missed one out somewhere. I was looking at different themes, and he is a mechanic and someone that doesn't normally get posted. So that's the one I'm in the middle of painting. I'm hoping that I will get that complete for the, and it's about masculinity. It's about that sort of the idea of domination, masculinity, and I've been trying to play around with that one. This painting is again one on the beach, and its theme is dancing. And I was trying to get the movement of the figures. This one was in the John Moores and was in the Women's Society of Women's Artists exhibition. And we have the seagulls at the back, which oddly turned out to be something that Gerald, who's my partner's stepbrother, something he actually hated. I hadn't actually realised at the time I actually included them in there, but he was actually very much afraid of seagulls. So it was a strange choice. And it's called Flight. And it's about children growing up and fledging the nest. And there is danger in this flight. There are second families. There are all sorts of dangers within this flight of leaving home when you're becoming a fledgling 20-year-old going to university, etc. So that is about time again. This one, these are miscellaneous ones really. This one is about my son, and it was painted just as I was in the middle of painting this just as COVID was coming to the fore. And I had to stop painting this one. I had to stop painting this one because it was too close to the brome. It's called This Is Going to Hurt. And it features my son, who is a doctor. He always objects to this one, in actual fact. He objects because he's wearing a tie. He said, doctors don't wear ties. But he was actually a really good model. He got in the bath for me and drowned in the bath. And it's about the fact that actually when you have a child, you hope for the best from them. You hope the best will happen to them, that the dreams as a child will come true. And time, again, you've got the element of time within this. And you don't realize just how much it is going to hurt, because you're very proud when they say they want to be a doctor. He said he wanted to be a doctor or Mickey Mouse. I was very pleased that he chose in the end to actually be a doctor. But it is very difficult. You don't realize the heartache and the pressure that they're going to be under, and the fact that they're unappreciated as a workforce, and no one actually supports that young doctor. And this is your son. No one supports them when the first person dies on them, when they bleed out. No one actually, sits them down and says, "Are you okay?" And I found it quite difficult when I was painting this one. But I was trying to get that feeling within this picture. This one is a commissioned picture, and it was commissioned by my friend, and I was trying to get the light in there. It's quite difficult when you get commissioned pictures, because you're never really certain that they're going to like what you produce. And this is Alison Ratcliffe, and she did like it, so that was good. I need to just pick one more image, because I didn't show you that, if that's okay. And I will share one more image, because for some reason it didn't load. And that's those are the ones. This is one called Pink, and I intended to do a series of paintings exploring the meaning of pink. Pink being a color that is regarded as feminine, is soft, and it's shown as a weakness quite often. And as I say, I was intending it to be a whole series of paintings. She had suffered from breast cancer and had a mastectomy, and I think I was trying to reclaim pink as a strong color rather than a weak color, and to show her strident sort of denial and a sort of appreciation of her femininity, even though she had lost part of her femininity. That which said, I intended to, as I say, to do a series of paintings, and I put my mother in the same pink dress, and I shared this on Instagram, and I said, "Oh, this is my 90-year-old mother." And I got quite a lot of, you get those strange people, soldiers, American soldiers, sort of army types, and they're basically not those people in reality. They're trying to be friends with you. And they all said, "What a nice smile you've got. How delightful you look." And with that smile. And I thought, I expected that someone in 90 would not look quite so feminine. So my expectations were completely shattered as to what I was intending to actually do, which was, I found quite interesting. Ageism and age is not dependent on your clothes, though. It's quite interesting to actually see that perhaps your perception does change of age depending on how you are presented. And I will stop there. and that would be the end of my talk, I believe.
Well, thanks very much, Christine. I'm going to allow people now to unmute themselves so that we can do questions. There are none in the chat box at the moment, so what I'll do is I'm going to start with one myself, and then if people would like to put their electronic hand up, I'm more than happy to invite them to put the question. What I would say is, although you can unmute yourselves, would you stay muted until you are asked to put your question and mute afterwards? Otherwise, we have a risk of people talking over it. So my opening question to you, Christine, is about location. You talked at the beginning about your picture being influenced by your Lancastrian background and the reference to the tree that came from that. We saw, I think the Scottish pictures showed a coastal area. We saw in the picture diptych with your son, I think that was the area of Suffolk, I think it is, that you're now in. Yeah. To what extent are those locations influencing your choice of subject, or are they merely just, I wouldn't say incidental to it, but they frame it, should we say?
That's quite a good question, actually. They are very influential, I would say. The Lancashire background. I moved from Lancashire to my mother's back and forth. So when I go back to Lancashire, I actually note all the differences between being in Lancashire and being in Suffolk. The idea that it's a very depressed area. If you go and visit Wigan, the whole centre of Wigan has been destroyed and marked down. And I did the Chat and Chips one, which I didn't show. The Chat and Chips idea of someone being isolated there, but it's very friendly. It's very down to earth. It has a totally different atmosphere, and you would not get the same ethos, and you would not get the same feeling from a place in Suffolk as you do in Lancashire. So you get totally different ideas from each place that you go to. The sort of the southern in Suffolk is very affluent. It's a very affluent area. So my diptych of my son is, although it's a landscape, is a very abundant landscape. It's got pretty flowers, and it's got sort of a beauty about it, which it doesn't. You get a different type of landscape when you go to Lancashire. You get the sort of more brambly sort of place. It's more brambles and overgrown, and it has more rugged sort of quality to it. I was in Scotland, and it was the lighting in Scotland. The lighting in Scotland is absolutely fantastic. So the beach scenes, okay, and you got all the big skies and the blue skies. It's very cold, but very, very sharp. So it influences what you produce.
Oh, that's really interesting. Now we've got a question. I don't know what it is, but I know it's about time and scale, from Elaine Moore. Elaine, would you like to put your question?
Yes, thank you so much, Christine, for sharing what felt like some very intimate thoughts with us. just as an aside, I may have missed this at the beginning, but I'm interested in where your name fits in your family history, because you told us so much about your parental and family connections. So if you don't mind saying about it, that would be great. But my question is really about the scale of your paintings, because the ones that you're showing us behind you look quite big. Are they all of that sort of almost life-size scale? And how long would it take you to paint them? Because they look so not quite sure what word to use, but complete, finished, but very smooth. They don't seem to have like impasto layers on them. So I'm interested in the speed at which you work.
I'll do the name bit first. Yes.
Okay, thank you.
The name bit first. Christine Roychowdhury. Roychowdhury. I married someone that had Roychowdhury as their surname, an Indian man, sort of. He's sort of half Indian, but he had the Indian surname. He was brought up in England. He was more English than you could be. But I rather like the name. So when I divorced him, I thought, well, I'll keep that name. No one else has that name. And I figured that my father's name is just my father's name, not my mother's name. And it's a patriarchal society. So why would I do that and go back? I didn't like the idea of doing that. And I love the name Roychowdhury. Not the man, but there you go. Not that, yeah, that point. So that is the name Roychowdhury. I figured, but my website is actually Art and Bailey, would you believe? So it's kind of harks back to it. Scale. It takes me on average a couple of months, 2 months to do a painting. The diptych took me longer simply because I kept having to wait for the season to change to get my reference points, because I couldn't decide on the right images on the floor. I kept thinking about rotting apples, and I thought, no, I want this one to be a happy one. I don't want to put rotting apples and autumnal things. You kept thinking about putting other things in, because all my images always have the bee sting. They have the sting in the tail a little bit, so that while I have the storm sort of arriving in the painting, the idea of snow and winter, and hopefully you have prepared your child through all the good times, etc., for all the storms of life that are actually going to happen. So that one took me rather longer, but they aren't life size. They're not quite life size, but I try and do paintings which give the illusion of being larger than they are, to be sort of more monumental. The idea that these two cleaners on the stairs are actually monumental figures. They are significant. They have meaning. The old lady lying prostrate on the bed has meaning, should not be just tucked away into a smaller image. And I think quite often, being a female artist, sometimes you're shoved into a cupboard whereby you are doing smaller work, and less gallery work, I suppose, more household work, and I didn't want my work to be like that. I want my work to actually have a visual impact, like almost like you could walk into sort of the room with the fish and chips. You could sit down at the table with them. So the idea is the scale adds to it. I do tend to try and play with the, as I say, with viewpoints, so that you have the idea that your presence as the viewer actually has a participant part to play within the painting. Sort of you as you look down, the view actually changes with it. So it's part of my wish to actually engage the viewer and the observer and to make them part of the image. Hopefully that answers your question.
Thank you.
Have we got any more questions that anybody would like to put? There's nothing in the chat box at the moment. Well, if
Sean's got her hand up.
Sean, yeah, I was looking for an electronic hand, but I'll have to accept the
And Peter.
that one. But you will have to unmute yourself, Sean.
Right. Thank you, Christine.
Sorry, the question is on the way. It'll appear in group chat in a moment.
Okay, fine.
Right.
We'll take Sean's first, and then we'll do it.
Yeah. When I saw your pictures of the dancers, and especially given the scale of the pictures, I couldn't help but be reminded of Paula Rago's dancers, which was actually shown, quite prominently in the Tate retrospective about 4 or 5 years ago. Given that you consider the female form to be so dominant and important within your art, I wonder if you have been influenced in any way by Paula Rago.
I went to see the Paula Rago exhibition. I was very impressed with her work. I liked the finish of it. I think the finish of it was really striking. And the idea that she, within that dance one, is she's trying to create movement and change within that piece. And I was interested in the way that she had the sea at the back of her and the lighting. I thought that was quite an interesting take on it. I like Paula Rago. I like her political activism and her dealing with abortions and sort of the idea of standing up and saying something. That she went and looked at lots of images of backstreet abortions and things like that, which I thought was quite interesting in her work. But when you look at her earlier work, it's quite interesting, the shift from the more sort of exaggerated free work into the tighter work. As she got older, she got tighter, and I find that quite interesting, and I can see a connection with her storytelling, because a lot of my work is on that basis, is narrative. It all tells a story of sort. I've tried to make the particular universal, so that you take a particular story and it makes a universal theme. She used the myths and legends quite a lot to actually tie her into her work. So I use the everyday. I'm trying to make it more relevant in a way, in that it's not Aesop's fables or something like that. It's not those other stories. It's actually it is the incestuous relationship. It is that thing that is actually implied within it. And I try and sort of take hold of that in a similar sort of way, is what I'd say.
Thank you. That's very interesting.
Right. Well, Peter, your question hasn't arrived in the chat box, but let's not worry about it. Would you like to unmute? Oh, it's just arrived, is it?
It should be with you now.
It's just arrived.
Just missed it.
If you'd
Yeah.
like to speak it out, that'd be great.
If I may explain, it's a question I find rather sensitive. And it's my partner next to me who's asked the question, has posed the question. I'm a little bit doubtful about asking it myself. I've also, had an artistic relationship with Christine. We were the partner artists in the 56 group at Cross Purposes exhibition. So we're getting to know each other in more detail. And thank you, Christine. I thought your presentation, your talk this evening has been articulate, passionate, deeply personal, and deeply felt. So thank you very much. So the question is one you may want to or not want to negotiate. It goes this way. Your lovely relationship is painted with great tenderness and enthusiasm. Do you feel that with previous relationships? Sorry.
Hang on. Do you feel that with previous relationships you were so able to paint with such passion and tenderness, or is Azanda just an outstanding life model? I've met you both, and he is an outstanding life model. Yes. I mean, they're beautifully, very tenderly done on it. I suppose I just wondered whether you were, as in, able to. Is he just sort of able to be a really good model, or have you been so inspired by other people? Really?
Hi, Peter. Yeah, it's really good to see you on this, and I'm really pleased that you joined us, and I hope I was articulate and good. The answer to the question is quite simply that Ander is probably the most encouraging person I've met, and he is unlike normal men, I'd say, normal relationships. We have almost like a reversed relationship. He is quite happy doing the cooking and the cleaning and all the organizing. He gets a bit annoyed at me at times because he do more, and basically he is so supportive. You can see him as I say, climb on the table and put your arms like that, and he does. He is so good, and he's a very, very good model. I mean, what other person could you ask to stand in slippers? Could you stand in slippers? He doesn't ask why. No. That's the thing. He does not ask why, and I think that is something which is key, and I've got to be very careful I don't abuse that in many ways, because there is that line where you can cross and you kind of say, stand next to the door, because I don't know if you're coming or you're staying. If you're standing, and you've got to have had that sort of conversation in reality. But as I say, the next painting that I'm about to embark on is my knight in shining armor. And you kind of, you know, when you're saying he's my knight in shining armor, you've got your tongue in cheek. You've got your rose tinted spectacles in one hand, and you've got the love-hate relationship in the other. So that you've got that sort of balance that going on. Is, he is my knight in shining armor. He stands by me. Everybody is flawed, and it's about the fact that he will it's probably a little bit too far in reality, because I'm going to incorporate the gravestone within it. Quite often I get very, very fearful sometimes of what I put in paintings, because sometimes they come true. And sometimes you're kind of just too close to the bone. But for a painting to actually work, you almost have to put aside those qualms. You have to put those aside, and you go, well, I'm gonna paint this. I'm gonna paint you and me dancing on the beach where you're really happy and I'm not so happy. You know, I'm actually, because everybody's an individual, and you don't know where you stand absolutely with everybody at any moment in time. I think I'm highly influenced by the fact I got divorced. I'm very, very influenced by the fact you never know what's going to happen. You never know if this person's going to stay with you, go with you, whatever. But live in the moment, do that. Do this knight in shining armor painting. You know, he's going to be gold in the background. It's going to be wham bam, and it's going to be celebrating, you know, this feeling that you have.
I think that's what they do seem to reflect, is the moment is life, and I really love that. I think they're very beautiful. Thank you. Thank you very much for your compliments. It's always nice to receive compliments. You're kind of never certain whether your painting is going to work. It actually works, and I think the shared artist experience that Peter and I had, whereby we got feedback back and forth, actually allows you to know whether it actually says what you think it says, whether it actually works. It's a bit like being back at school. Someone's giving you feedback on your work, which you can't get, and it's straight feedback. It doesn't have, you know, if you don't like something, you go, oh, I don't know if that works. You know? And that's something that I do actually miss, not being part of that correspondence. I have to say, Peter, you were really useful.
Well, what a lovely moment to reflect on, and thank you to everybody for all those questions. But most of all, thanks to Christine for such an interesting talk. I think she's been slightly disingenuous when we're talking about scale, because during the rehearsals, she was telling us the physical pains she was incurring as a result of the size of the canvases. But never mind, I think we can all see that they are fairly large paintings by any standard. In a moment, I'm going to invite you all to say thank you to Christine. But before I do, a bit of promotional stuff for CASW. If anybody who's been participating would like to know more about CASW, including how to become a member, please visit our website at casw.org.uk for all the relevant information. Can I also tell you that our third online talk for this year will be on Tuesday, the 26th of March, when the speaker will be the artist from Scotland, Tim Dodds. So please look out for the details in due course. Now, I'm going to ask you, please, to switch to gallery, unmute, clap, whistle, cheer, but pretend you're in person and say thank you to Christine in the traditional manner. Thanks very much indeed.
Thank you.
Excellent.
Thank you.
Okay, everybody, thank you. And most of all, thanks to Christine for such a great talk.